Now, much of your experience of the Global Samud Flotilla, as well as ours, will have been narrated by one very familiar, very comforting and totally singular voice. This was Kieran Andrieu's very first dispatch from the Global Samud Flotilla.
Everybody, quick update from me. I'm currently in Barcelona. I'm here because on Sunday the 31st of August, I'm going to be setting sail for Gaza as part of the Global Samud Flotilla. It's going to be the single largest attempt to break Israel's siege of Gaza ever undertaken. Without giving too much away, scores of boats will leave ports in Spain on Sunday, with dozens more expected to join from Tunis and elsewhere on the 4th of September and beyond. Hundreds of activists were chosen from 26,000 ordinary people who responded to a public call out. They're currently here in Barcelona, undergoing compulsory training alongside me, Greta Thunberg, and many, many more. We all know that genocide is taking place in Gaza. We all know that Israel is using mass starvation as a weapon of war against Palestinians. Given this context, I felt it was more important now than ever to provide coverage of the entire voyage from start to finish for Novara media. I do, of course, also have a personal reason for wanting to take part. My Palestinian family knows what it means to live under Zionist occupation. I'm expected to spend around 14 days at sea. That's 14 days more than I've ever spent on a boat before, so wish me luck. And stay tuned because, tech permitting, I'm going to be providing daily updates across all of our channels. Thank you, and thanks for your continued support.
And daily updates, Kieran did indeed provide very good ones indeed. But of course, things got dangerous pretty quickly after an incendiary device dropped from a drone hit the family boat that Kieran was a member of at that time.
Hi everybody, sorry I didn't give you an update yesterday. It's just that the past 36 hours have been incredibly intense. But I'm really happy to report that I'm back on the family boat, the boat that was struck by the first of the two drones 2 nights ago. And the other boat that was struck by a drone was Alma, which if you look out there, you can see is anchored very nearby. And I happen to know that Alma, like my boat, like family, has both participants and crew back on board. I think it's pretty obvious that Israel did this for 2 reasons, right? It wanted to deter the flotilla, scare us into sort of disembarking and going home. And obviously, as I say, back on board, that's failed. Completely failed in that strategy. Number 2, unfortunately, somewhat more successfully, Israel wanted to get the evacuation and ethnic cleansing of Gaza City out of the international headlines, right? This is what Israel does. It bombs countries to try and distract the fickle media from paying attention to the genocide in all of its various appalling forms. And as I say, unfortunately, the media is susceptible to that. So yeah, bomb Doha, bomb the flotilla, get the ethnic cleansing of Gaza City out of the headlines. I've done a little inspection of the ship, and I'd say that everything I've seen is consistent with what was reported by Novara, which is that the damage is ultimately superficial. So the front of the boat has kind of blackened, charred surfaces. One curious thing that one of the other participants on the boat pointed out to me is that there's plastic blinds which have melted away because of the heat. They melted because of the heat of the fire, which really does say to me that this could have been a lot worse. And it is a credit. It's a tremendous credit to the people who handled the fire, that something so ferocious was put out so quickly and that there wasn't more damage. As I say, it's on to Bizerte next, another port in Tunisia. Obviously, safeguarding, safety protocols, we have been delayed slightly, but everybody is absolutely determined to sail on from Bizerte, collect more boats in Sicily or in the sea beneath Sicily, onwards past Greece, collect more boats there, and finally to Gaza.
Kieran's reporting became most essential, as well as, in some strange way, most reassuring in the moments before Israel swept in to intercept the flotilla. But despite the anxiety and the threat of violence that surrounded him, Kieran just never lost his cool. This was his report as the Israeli gunships closed in.
So, the military vessel is circling us. Circling us. Let's see if I can show you.
No movement, no.
Let this ship take over, okay? Ya sabéis, el siguiente barco líder toma la posición.
Okay guys, we have to be really, really careful because even just flashing a light or having our phone could be seen as a provocation and they could fire on us. So we are, it's not, I'm not able to, I'm not able to. That's Alba, yeah, it's Alba. I'm not able to shine my light anymore, just so that you're all aware. So now we're in front of it and behind us. It's coming, is it? Should we? The boat is now alongside us. The boat is now alongside us.
After Kieran was apprehended by the Israeli military, he had one last message for us after his abduction.
If you're watching this video, it means that I have been kidnapped by Israel. My name is Kieran Andrieu with Novara Media. I decided to sail with the Global Salmon Flotilla to report on this unprecedented attempt by people from 44 different countries to break Israel's illegal and genocidal siege of Gaza. I also have my own motivations for wanting to be here. My 6 siblings grew up in Palestine under Zionist occupation, and watching from afar in the UK, I saw how they were shot, terrorised and imprisoned simply for wanting to live on land that my family had owned for generations. I couldn't be a passive witness to Israel's atrocities any longer. As we sailed, Israel's genocide intensified with new levels of brutality enacted against the people of Gaza City. In the month that we were away, hundreds more children were slaughtered in their homes. A pregnant woman was beheaded and starving people were gunned down and murdered while waiting for aid. And so we continued through explosive and chemical attacks on our boats, to the jamming of our radio systems, to smearing us in order to lay the groundwork for violence against us. Our flotilla mission was entirely legal. It is protected under several binding instruments of international law. I therefore call on my government, Keir Starmer's government, to act now and to hold Israel to account. So I ask that you share this message and demand of our governments my safe return and the safe return of everybody else who participated in this peaceful and lawful mission to break Israel's siege of Gaza and to free Palestine. Thank you.
Absolutely, amongst the very best of us. Earlier today, I was joined by Jack, an old friend of Kieran Andrieu's, and I began by asking him how he first found out that Kieran would be joining the flotilla.
I was actually with Kieran when he found out that he was going to be on the boat, or at least that there was a very high likelihood that he was going to have the opportunity to do this. It didn't come as a surprise in the sense that I knew that Kieran would do this, given the opportunity to do it. We all, I guess, have seen his reasons, his personal affinity for doing this, but you know, he was never going to say no. But we were scared, and we were very kind of like, we knew we wouldn't be able to dissuade him, and we didn't really want to dissuade him, but we were very worried.
And what was it that was most worrying for you?
Well, I mean, we've all seen what's been going on over the past year, and how Israel treat journalists, how Israel are treating Palestinians. Being a journalist of Palestinian heritage, we felt that like he was going to be at risk potentially, but he told us all of the reasons why he felt that he'd be safe. He told us all of the kind of logical reasons why he felt that he was doing the right thing, but also that he would come back. I mean, we didn't really have any choice but to believe him, but you know, he's a confident guy, and he believes in himself, and he believes in the cause. So like, he was never going to not do this, and so we all kind of had to just accept that, like, you know, he would be safe. And that's the only reason why, we're all okay back home. Kieran's friends, the people who love him, the people who care about him, is because we have to believe that like he's gonna be okay. And up until last night, that was an incredibly scary thing. But up until last night, that's been the kind of like, that's how I've been feeling throughout this whole thing. But yeah, I've been scared, and our friendship group have been very scared.
Yeah, last night was quite an extraordinary kind of, I mean, spectacle is not really the right word, but a sort of extraordinary historic moment that has been captured, and that Kieran was such an important part of as a reporter. Tell us what it was like for you to be watching those scenes unfold over the course of the night yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't want to watch it. I didn't feel like I could really sort of handle it. But then I spoke to someone about it, and they said like, I think you should, and they were right, and so I did, and I'm glad I did, because the world does need to see what's happening, and it's people like Kieran and everyone else on the flotilla that are showing that. But it felt awful. It felt as though I was about to see something that I could never really unsee. And I watched it up until Kieran threw his phone in the water.
One of the things that I found, I think, most impressive about Kieran's reporting, especially in those moments where danger was so near, was that he seemed to me to be so incredibly calm and steady. And there were these moments where he just had these sort of deep sighs that expressed both a kind of anxiety about what was going on around him, but a sort of boredom with the kind of banality of the Israelis' way of going about things, the kind of coming close, going away, tiring people out. Did you similarly find the style with which he managed to report this, kind of profound series of events in some sense reassuring? Or what did you think of it?
I guess I'd known Kieran for 18 years now, so I know him as a very close personal friend, and he's an entertainer. Like in our group, he's an entertainer. He's a larger than life guy who'll hold court and who'll tell stories, and everyone will pay attention. So it's been strange watching the tone that he's using to report these things, because he's obviously done it in a very uncensored way in our kind of like personal space. But it's heartwarming and reassuring and funny sometimes to see him slip into his own style, his own kind of personal take on these things, which isn't funny, but and I know that everyone who has been following Kieran on the flotilla will know his personal reasons for going. But as a close friend of his, he's always been someone who has been sympathetic to people who are oppressed, not just Palestinian people, but, if there's a protest, he's there. If there's a reason to stand, he stands. And so it's not surprising to me or anything like that to see him calm or composed in these situations to a certain extent. And then to another extent, my feelings are like, oh my God, my friend is there, being kidnapped by the IDF, and he's saying like, sit down for fuck's sake. That to me, I think only Kieran could sort of make me laugh in a situation like that, and he actually did, which is pretty weird. But I guess, like I said before, knowing that he's going to be okay because of the things that he told us before he left, and the things that he's continued to tell us while he's been away, has allowed me to watch that like that. But last night was horrific. It was really horrible to watch.
For us here as well, it was nerve-wracking. But obviously, in many ways, now is actually in some ways the scariest moment, because it's the moments where Kieran is completely out of sight. We don't know exactly where he is. We think he's in Ashdod in Israel. We're hoping for a quick deportation. How are you and his other friends and family, how are you feeling about this period where he's in the hands of the Israeli state? And what are you hoping about the outcome of this?
My understanding is that Kieran has been briefed and has agreed to sign papers that will allow him, the deportation papers. I don't know the exact term. And I believe he'll do that. My friends believe he'll do that. His family believe that he'll do that and be back safe soon. But yeah, this was the bit that I was dreading the most, the bit without any comms, because, you know, I have been able to be in touch with him, and I've had, you know, a few voice notes back and forth and lots of messaging back and forth on WhatsApp. Sorry about the sirens. And so there has been a level of comfort in that. And so obviously now that he's out of comms and we can't reach him and he can't reach us, that obviously heightens the fear and heightens, I guess, the risk, because there's no cameras on him, there's no eyes on him right now, and that is scary. But, you know, like I said, I think we're all kind of like everyone here that loves Kieran, that cares about Kieran, that can't wait to see him again and give him a big hug, is 100% certain that what he said before he left is still true, that, you know, he is protected and he will come home.
Jack, you've made reference a couple of times now to Kieran's personal circumstances. Do you want to, like, I think the audience is generally aware of it, but do you want to elaborate on that and the reason and why that's such an impetus for him making this journey?
Journalistically, he thinks it's important. I think as a human being, he sees the vital, the mission as being vital. And I think everyone watching this does. But with Palestinian heritage, with Palestinian family, and so many of them being, you know, living under IDF law, IDF rule for their entire lives. You know, Kieran has been separated from them for many reasons. And when he's seen them, he's kind of had to, you know, listen to the harrowing tales of their lives. And then we, as, you know, as his friends, kind of like hear these things secondhand from him. I think he was excited to go. I think he was genuinely scared but excited to do something, because, you know, he has lived his life in the UK, and he's done incredible things. You know, he's lived a really, really fun, exciting life, and I think that a big part of him felt a duty to his people, and I don't think he'd mind me saying that. I think he'd agree with me on that. So yeah, I think, you know, like you mentioned earlier about hearing the news about him going, there was never any part of me that was ever going to say, like, don't do this, or like, are you sure about this? It was never really that. It was more to do with, you know, just stay safe. And but we knew that if he had any opportunity to go on this mission to deliver aid to Gaza, to Palestinians, he would do it.
That was Kieran's friend Jack. Seemed a very lovely friend, Jack, who joined me earlier today. Kieran wasn't alone in leaving a message for the world after being kidnapped in an act of high seas piracy by the Israeli military.
My name is Kieran. I'm a citizen of Sweden. If you are watching this video, I have been abducted and taken against my will by Israeli forces. Our humanitarian mission was non-violent and abiding by international law. Please tell my government to demand my and the others' immediate release.
I'm Thiago Avila. I'm a Brazilian citizen, and if you're watching this video, it means our humanitarian mission to Gaza has been either intercepted or attacked by Israel, and we need your immediate support to pressure my government and other governments for the immediate release of all of our participants and for their safety. It's very important that we apply this pressure right now. Every minute counts, every second counts, and provide as well the support and the pressure to break relations with Israel. Gaza needs us more than ever, and we're counting on you.
Hello everyone, I am Ty Hickey and I'm from Ireland. If you're watching this video, I have been kidnapped by the IDF in international waters, which is completely illegal, and taken to Israel against my will. Please put pressure on the Irish government to end its complicity in the genocide in Gaza and to get me home. Free Palestine, end the genocide, Saoirse Dun Palestine.
My name is Nkosi Zwelithini Lemandela, a citizen of the Republic of South Africa. I am participating in a non-violent mission on the global Sumud flotilla, taking humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. If you are receiving this video, it means I have already been intercepted and abducted by the Israeli forces. I call on you as the citizens of South Africa, to call on our government for my immediate release.
Dalia, there are people representing 44 countries on that flotilla. Europe, many from Europe, but many from all across the world, including the global south. Of course, there are Palestinians as well, including Kieran. What do you think all of these different people from different places are going to encounter over the next few days while in Israeli custody?
I mean, it's difficult to say, because one thing that the Israeli state has showed us over the past 2 years, and has actually showed us really over the past more than 70 years, is that there are no lines. There are no boundaries. There are no laws that they're not willing to break. There's no line that they're not willing to cross. And what the rest of the world has showed us, and when I talk about the rest of the world, I mean governments. I don't mean everyday people who have a very long history of taking actions such as these flotillas in order to express their solidarity with the Palestinians, to meet their historical responsibility to fight for the Palestinians and all colonized people. What the governments of the world has showed us is they are willing to let the Israelis do whatever it is that they want, regardless of what boundaries and laws they are breaking through. It is, of course, incredibly brave. It's incredibly moving, but it's also deeply strategic, precisely because of the way in which having a flotilla representing 40 different countries around the world essentially means that those 40 governments are now implicated, are now responsible, are now directly involved, have been pulled into being directly involved into what Israel is doing. It's not just brave, it is deeply strategic. And why is it strategic? What are the aims of the flotilla? The flotilla's first aim is, of course, to get aid to Gaza. That is, on the face of it, that is what the flotilla is for, and that is what the aim of the flotilla is. But there's also a deeper strategic goal, and that is that the 500 people on those boats, representing 40 different countries, they are trying to pull other governments into the governments of the world, the governments that they are the citizens of, into finally standing up to Israeli impunity. Because what we have to remember is that the Palestinians are a stateless people. And when you are stateless, you do not have access to the typical forms of recourse that most people in the world have access to. And you do not have a state that can represent your interests on the international stage and that can defend you from aggression. We talk a lot about, does Israel have a right to defend itself? Well, the Palestinians don't even have the means to defend themselves, because they don't have a military, they don't have a government, they don't have statehood that is widely recognized throughout the world. And so by having people who are the citizens of 40 different governments, when they got on these boats, they knew that the likelihood was that their boats would be illegally intercepted and they would be illegally kidnapped by Israel. They knew that that was the most likely thing that was going to happen. Now, when you are a citizen of a country and you face illegal aggression from another country or from people within another country, your state has got a legal responsibility and right to take action, to protect you, to stand up to that state that is exemplifying illegal aggression towards you. For example, in Iran, when British citizens, American citizens have historically been taken hostage in Iran, the governments of the US and Israel and the UK have had to engage in negotiations to hold them accountable for doing that. So by putting their bodies on the line, by putting themselves at a high risk of being illegally abducted by the Israeli state, the 500 people on these boats are basically saying, we are going to put ourselves at risk in order to force our governments to stand up to Israeli impunity, because all of the 40 governments that are represented on that boat, or whose citizens are represented on those boats, now have the legal right and obligation to defend their citizens against aggression by the Israelis. And so by what they are, these people are on these boats are trying to get the international governments involved and actually obligated, even though they are already obliged to, to at least not be complicit in a state that is at plausible risk of conducting genocide. But now they ought to be provoked into protecting their citizens from aggression, illegal aggression by a rogue state. So what I would say is the 500 people on those boats have done their part. It's now time for our governments to do their part.
That point you make about impunity is very important. I saw someone in the chat earlier saying something like, I don't like the way that the flotilla has taken attention away from Gaza. Now, of course, the whole purpose of the flotilla has been to drive eyes to Gaza, and it has done that very well. And just for this moment where there's this interaction with the Israeli state, it's felt important to us to put our eyes on the flotilla. But it's also, it's really important not to separate these things out, because the common theme here is Israeli impunity. Gaza is not the cause of Israeli impunity. It's a symptom. It's a very, very big one. But the treatment of the flotilla being attacked, kidnapped, acts of piracy in international waters with no consequences for Israel is another feature of its impunity. The two are connected. So when we cover this story, in a way, what we're covering is what's central to not only the genocide in Gaza, but rather to Israel's influence in the whole region and the way in which the wider world interacts with Israel and allows them to continue to breach international law, to commit war crimes, to commit acts of genocide itself with total impunity.